You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, telling Oklahoma stories through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com and definitely on Instagram at oklahomahof. Let's get into today's episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode up in Bartlesville today. Sat in the clubhouse at Hillcrest Country Club. Just played golf out here. Played okay. We won't talk about how I finished, but it's hot, man. What a day. But in front of me, good friend Jared Gallagher's on the podcast. Talk a little bit about kind of Red Dirt Golf Collective, a little bit about Oklahoma golf, and obviously you went to OSU, so go Pokes.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit about, before we dive into the golf stuff and the riding, and obviously you do a lot of things. Tell me about kind of general upbringing and then how you navigate to go to OSU.
Yeah, sure. So, I know this is Oklahoma podcast, so a lot of people won't love to hear me say that I was born in Plano, Texas, lived my first 5 or 6 months of life in Plano, but we moved up to the Tulsa area when I was very young, grew up in the Tulsa area, Tulsa proper, Berry Hill, and then ended up in Owasso, I believe in third grade. So from third grade through graduation, I lived in Owasso, graduated from Owasso High School in 2007. Then it was kind of a foregone conclusion that I'd go to Stillwater for school. My parents both met when they were in Stillwater in school, and it was just kind of that's what we did as a family. Was we grew up going to Oklahoma State football games and basketball games back when they were not nearly as much fanfare. I know we've seen each other up in Stillwater once or twice before, and there's not quite the fanfare 20 years ago or 25 years ago. But it was kind of a foregone conclusion that I'd go to school in Stillwater, and it was the best 5 years of my life. It was a blast. I studied sports media, broadcast journalism, and met some incredible friends. And that's really kind of how Red Dirt Golf got started as well. I met Spencer Drury. We both worked out at Carson Creek together. Yeah. And it was just a summer job that they needed. In fact, I thought I was going to get let go after the 2011 national championship. They were beefing up their numbers for the 2011 national title. And I worked out in the cart barn and fully expected to not have a job come school time. And for one reason or another, they let me hang on for a year or two. And so that was a lot of fun. And Spencer always would rib me because he worked in the golf shop in the air conditioning, and it was hot in Stillwater in the summertime. So, that's kind of how that came about. And I regret very little of it.
Yeah, no doubt. Because it's hard to beat being at Carson Creek, playing free out there, and you're just around some great players, and you get to see the future Victor Hovland or whoever the guys were back then. It's amazing.
That's really where I fell in love with the game. I didn't play in high school. I didn't play competitively in high school. I was not ever and still am not a competitive golfer by any stretch of the imagination, but when you're working out at a place that has that kind of pedigree, it's hard not to fall in love with the game. And when you're watching excellence every day, Ricky Fowler and Kevin Tway and Morgan Hoffman and Peter Uihlein are out there grinding for hours a day, on this world-class golf course. It's hard not to admire what they're doing, and to see at that time Mike McGraw was the head coach, and to see him every day and gather his wisdom was pretty cool. That guy, he's to this day one of the most knowledgeable guys in the game of golf I've ever met. And they breed excellence, and I think that's really filtered down. You look at the prep scene here. The prep golf scene in Oklahoma is outstanding. The junior golf scene is outstanding. The amateur golf scene is outstanding. So, not saying that Carson Creek and the Oklahoma State golf program takes all the credit, but I think they, when you have had literal decades of excellence, that brings the level up at other levels of competition.
Yeah. So the sports media thing, that was just a like I'm going to go do sports media. That was from a high school. You're really involved in really enjoyed kind of journalism.
Yes.
Like
So math and science were out.
Yeah.
I knew that from an early age. That was not my forte. But we were a sports family, and I loved sports. And was never athletic enough to go play at any serious level. But we played basketball, we played baseball, all the big sports. And it was something, I saw it as an opportunity to kind of stay in the game somehow. I did it to, I really did it to, be able to position myself in and around these games that I love. I mean, when I was at Oklahoma State, I had an internship with the media relations department, and I was able to sit courtside for Oklahoma State basketball games and be in the locker room for the 2011 Bedlam game, and winning the Big 12 championship. I mean, there's some incredible experiences that came out of that. And I did do sports full time out of school for a few years, and quickly realized that it takes a special human to be in sports full time, and I'm not that special of a human. So I burned out on it pretty quickly, to be honest. The 80-hour work weeks and being at the ballpark all day, every day is a grind. And so, full time, it just wasn't for me. But I found a way through announcing and things like that I'm able to still go to the games, be a part of the games, and kind of put my stamp on it. But, I don't have all of the the effort or the commitment to being there full time.
It's great when you're in college, you don't have a family, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're around the guys,
do whatever
you're having
you want,
fun,
yeah.
and you, like I said, you're in that locker room, and because you put in those hours, and they see you all the time, and you are one of them. Unfortunately, you don't have to go to workouts. You just kind of like, I get a camera and I got to write stuff. Was it did you kind of fall in love with the writing side of things and the photography side?
Yeah, I think and I don't know what my wife would say, but I think I'm a romantic at heart, and that goes beyond, just what you see on the gridiron or on the hardwood. I love romanticized stories of athletic feats, or The Miracle on Ice, any of those movies. I'm a sucker for sports movies because I love the emotional side of it, and I love the storyline of bonding and anything that goes around the competitive nature of sports. I'm all about that. I think it's so cool to be able to, and sports are a parallel to life, right? I mean, but at the same time, it's an escape from life. It's such a cool kind of juxtaposition, and I've always just wanted to have a small part in that. Yeah.
Well, and like when you're at a program that you've seen the wins, you've seen the losses, because for the most part, OSU, especially football, I mean, it's not like you're always contending,
right.
But the great thing is you've seen what it means to people when you do get that championship, and it means the entire world, right?
Absolutely.
And there's something, it's kind of like that fan who their team always won. I mean, just like you have no idea what it's
absolutely.
like to win 2 games a year,
no doubt,
and still show up.
No doubt.
Right?
I mean, I remember where I was in 1995 when Oklahoma State beat OU in Bedlam 12-0. I remember where I was in 2002. I remember where I was in 2011. When I was actually in college and got to experience that. I mean, it's crazy how that can bring people together, all walks of life. It doesn't throw everything out the door, politics and religion and race and everything else. If you have that common bond in a sports team or a program that you are passionate about, then your brothers and your sisters, and that's what's so cool about it. And so, I've got some really cool memories that, they say in Ted Lasso, it's the hope that'll kill you, and it is, but it makes those moments even more special. For me, because I didn't grow up, in a big university, and I university sports back home is not big at all. Sure.
It's the Premiership or the rugby or that's it, right? It's not like, college sports out here, which is massive. But, when you support a team that's just terrible and they get that win, right? That one miracle season, and that hope, it's like we could move up a division. Like we're there. and then they miss out by like 2 points.
Yeah.
Just like over a season, it's nothing, you know. But the good thing is you get to hone your craft and enjoy. Like, you know, it's not like for you, because you're in media, you're still progressing regardless of how the team's doing. Because there are times you've got to write a report and we've sucked.
Yeah.
You know,
but
no
then,
doubt. You know, and you're like, how do I string this together? How do I find a positive, right? But still, like, that grows you. But sadly, like you said, you come to a point where I want to have a family. I want to have a life.
Yeah, that's true. And, you know, there are different sides of it too. I've been on the sports reporting side of it. I've been on the marketing side, you know, working with teams and programs. And it's cool to see and develop those relationships. You know, like now I announce University of Tulsa football and basketball, and it's cool to see some of the same journalists locally covering the same sport, you know, because they've really ingrained themselves in that. They're almost a part of the storyline. I mean, Barry Trammell's almost a part of the storyline whenever he reports. You know, there are those relationships that you create throughout the years. And, you know, University of Tulsa basketball, we're going through a coaching change right now. Well, I've only ever announced Division I basketball for Frank Haith. And so it's going to be a new experience to announce for Eric Conkle, who's coming in, and you know, to see, you know, how does the atmosphere change in the arena? What sort of things is he going to bring to the table outside of a competitive nature and hopefully bringing some wins? You know, how is that going to change the culture of Tulsa basketball? So, you know, there's so many pieces to the pie there, and there's so many people behind the scenes. You know, ticketing guys and marketing guys and sports information guys, and I mean, there's so many people that people don't ever see that make you know, an athletic organization run at any level. You know, I mean, nowadays there are high schools in the state of Oklahoma that are hiring their own sports information guys and media people, and it's crazy.
And it's needed. That's the great part about it. You know, like, there's nothing better for these kids than, you know, because high school, everyone has those stories, right? High school, sometimes could be the best time of your sporting career and life. But having that documented, like, imagine if, you know, we've all, like I said, we've all heard the stories of, you know, we got a friend who was like, I did this, or we did this in high school. How good was our team that year? And you have documented proof of it. You're like, we get to play this every now and then. Bring it out. Like, it'd be so cool.
Absolutely. It's really good. I'm super excited to see where high school athletics in the state of Oklahoma is moving, because it is becoming, you know, that's one of the jobs I have at Owasso High School. I announce football, basketball, baseball, a bunch of different sports, and that's one of our mentalities, is to bring a Division I level product every time. And that's not just on the field. That's, you know, what music am I playing, you know, from the press box? How am I announcing things? You know, do we have our scripting in line? Do we have our advertisers and sponsors in line? You know, all of these extra moving pieces, and it's just a scaled down version of a Division I operation. And it's cool to see a lot of high schools and you know, these prep schools moving toward that level. I mean, everything is becoming more and more professional, and it's pretty cool to be, you know, on this side of that to watch.
How do you, like, where do you find your announcer's voice? Like, where does that first opportunity come and you're like, you know what, you can do this? Or do you do an internship under someone? Like, how does that come about? Because it's a job that a lot of people, I think is probably one of the coolest jobs you could have, being the announcer. But they don't know how long it takes to, like you said, 60, 80-hour weeks of covering baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a niche position for sure. When I realized that I wasn't going to play competitive sports, that was kind of my first foray into being around sports while not playing it. I started when I was in high school. They needed some, I don't know, 7th grade football announcer on Saturday mornings or something like that. And so I went and did that. And then I was in choir in high school and college, and knew I had a voice that could be utilized for more than whatever. And so, I just tried to parlay that into an opportunity for me. And so, had some great mentorship with Larry Reese at Oklahoma State when I was there. I mean, he's been there. I think he started when he was in college at OSU in the early 90s. So he's been there for 30 years and has become the voice of Oklahoma State athletics. Obviously, knows what he's doing there. And we've got some great voices in the state.
Guy at OU.
Yeah,
he's been on the podcast.
Yeah, but I mean,
he's awesome.
Yeah, we've got some great voices in the state of Oklahoma, and they're really, as far as marketing a brand goes, I mean, you almost need that voice, that consistent voice to people know when they walk into Boone Pickens Stadium, they're going to hear Larry Reese on the microphone. I hope to bring that to the Tulsa games that I announced, the Owasso games that I announced, and when I was announcing the Dodgers in Oklahoma City, that was the same way. I wanted to be there for every game and hopefully, bring that level of consistency to Bricktown Ballpark.
That's going to drive me nuts, that guy's name, because I know him as well. Like, he's just a great dude. But then his predecessor who was the other legend at OU that was there forever? Again,
you're talking to an Oklahoma State guy.
You're right.
I've been around.
I should have realized that. But no, you're right, because these guys, it is a very niche position because they find someone they like, they're very good at it, and the person they do it generally loves what they're doing, and they don't want to go anywhere else. And thankfully, like, your voice is something that stays with you until you die. Yeah. So your kind of job security is pretty good unless you say something really bad.
Look at Mario. Mario's been with the Thunder. Mario, I think his name's Mario Benali. He's been with the Thunder since the Thunder came to Oklahoma City. I've tried to get that job several times, but he is the voice of the Oklahoma City Thunder. And it wouldn't be a Thunder game if you didn't hear Mario on the microphone.
Yeah, again, I have to look up this guy because it's going to freaking drive me nuts. Anyway, and it's Toby Rowland.
Oh, yeah, Toby.
Sooner Voice on Instagram. It's such a cool job to have, though, because, like, and on today, right, or yesterday, like the Open for us, we're recording the Monday after the British Open just to kind of timestamp this. And I'm driving up here yesterday up to Bartlesville, I was listening to the Open radio. Mm-hmm. It's so much fun listening to it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't see anything, but, like, even though if you're watching, the putts aren't as close to going in as they sound like they're going in on the radio. And I'm fortunate enough, a friend of mine's dad was one of the guys on Open Radio.
Oh,
and he's done it forever. He's been a radio announcer for that's his career. And it's just funny to, like, I know him. So it's like listening to, his name's Ron Jones, like listening to Ron's voice. It's like, it's so awesome. My buddy Alistair, who is his son, we play golf together, and Alistair, like, literally went to every Open he wanted to because he's
his
like,
name's
with
Alistair.
his dad. Exactly. Alistair, I think is how his dad would say it, but they're never going to listen to this, so I can say anything. But I think Alistair's in Texas, actually, because he came out here to play golf. But it's such a cool job, and it's something that people recognize you, they know you. But also, like, sometimes if they've never seen you, they're like, wait, I know who you are. I've listened to you before.
That's the coolest part about it. And, I would never do this to be recognized for, what I do on the microphone or what I don't do on the microphone. But it's really cool when people, you can see them kind of thinking, I've heard you before. I've not seen your face, but I've heard you before, and I get to make that connection. But it is, as much as what I get to do on the microphone at the stadium or in the arena, it's for me, it's trying to create a game day atmosphere that people want to enjoy, whether or not their team is winning. I want it to be high energy. I want it to be fun for everybody, home and away, and make sure that they are, they're getting their money's worth, whether or not, their guys are performing well or their gals are performing well.
Yeah. So back to the golf thing, you said when you worked at Carson Creek that's kind of where, like, the Red Dirt Golf Collective kind of birth of it. Is that where you just kind of full deep dive nerd out into the architecture side of golf? And the stories of golf and how, like, Oklahoma is pretty special. No one talks about it.
So I didn't realize kind of, the gyms that we're sitting on as Oklahomans, and we have some gyms here in the state that are crazy good golf. I mean, if people aren't traveling around to Oklahoma like they are right now, Nebraska or Wisconsin or Oregon, but we have, in terms of the richness of golf course architecture, I mean, I would put us up against anybody in terms of, the quality of golf course architecture per capita in the state of Oklahoma. Working out at Carson, that's where Spencer and I got to know each other really well. I was the best man in his wedding. He was in my wedding as well. And it really wasn't until COVID, we were playing out at Cimarron National one day. And this was right after, I think the guys from the Golfers Journal had come through a couple of weeks before. Casey Bannon and some of those guys. And not to shamelessly plug them, but I'm going to shamelessly plug them anyway.
They're worth plugging. They're amazing.
My gosh. As far as media content goes, they're the best in the business. Golf media content, low advertising, really quality.
It's everything
writing.
I want. This is
exactly.
Right? Like,
well, and the same thing with
podcast fan. It's amazing.
The same thing with Red Dirt Golf. I mean, it was kind of our inspiration for creating Red Dirt Golf. We wanted to create an avenue for telling, kind of deep diving into some of those stories of the architects, the Perry Maxwells, the A.W. Tillinghast that people didn't even know we had in the state of. Very few people knew we had. A couple of Tillinghast in the state of Oklahoma. I mean, there's some really cool stories out there that we wanted to tell, and this just kind of became a creative outlet for us to write and hopefully tell some of those stories that haven't been told in a long time, and kind of refreshing people's minds and hopefully creating some pride in the golf that we do have here in Oklahoma.
Yeah. Well, and it's also fun for you guys to have a project that like, you're not like solely thinking, I need ads, I need to pay bills from this, right?
Yeah.
You're not, it's just a fun passion project to do. And you also don't have anyone telling you what you can and can't write about.
For sure.
And you can write as much as you want, or you can write little, or you can travel. Like it's the beauty of it. And I know you guys done a great job of it. And you guys getting a press pass to the PGA was like the pinnacle of it.
That was cool.
Which we'll get to later.
Yeah.
But what was kind of like, did you just kind of start like writing stories? Like what was that first story? And I mean, how do you think that, I know it's great to have an idea, but how is it like, let's just like, this is going to be a legit thing now?
I think when you start anything, you have images of grandeur in your mind on what it could be and the potential that it has. But we intentionally started slower than we wanted to. We started with a Twitter account and an Instagram account. We didn't have a website. We didn't have anything. Because, Spencer and I both have full-time jobs. We both now have full-time families. We've got a lot of stuff going on. And, I'm announcing on the side and all of this stuff. And so, we wanted to make sure we're not biting off more than we can chew. So, this really started two summers ago as a Twitter account. And pretty quickly, we realized that it had legs and that this was kind of an opportunity that hasn't really been fleshed out by anybody else in our state, and so we created a website, and that allowed us to have a platform for telling those stories. I mean, you can tell a story in 140 characters or 280 characters, but you're not going to get all the details that you want in there. And so this gave us this website gave us the platform to write those stories, and they are long form stories. I mean, I think one of the story we did on Hillcrest is like 4,000 words. So if you're not a reader, it's probably not for you. But you follow us anyway on Twitter, for sure, because we'll give you the highlights of our stories. But yeah, it just gave us an opportunity to get out there and that's another thing that people don't realize is how accommodating people are in this game in Oklahoma. I mean, I'm not a member anywhere. I'm not a member at Southern Hills or Hillcrest or, anywhere else that we've done a story on. Exactly. Yeah. Anywhere else that we've done a story on. And everybody has welcomed us in with open arms because they know that we have a special story to tell, whether it's Perry Maxwell or it's Frank Phillips here in Bartlesville. And he barely played golf, but he had such an influence on the game of golf in this Bartlesville area in northeast Oklahoma. Waco Turner in southern Oklahoma, his story is freaking wild. Mm-hmm. We haven't even, that's a story that I wanted to tell. I think I've got 2,000 or 3,000 words on Waco Turner right now, and I'm not even to the interesting stuff yet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's so many stories out there like that. I mean, Susie Maxwell Burning at Lincoln
Golf
Park.
Hall of Famer.
Yeah, Golf Hall of Famer was inducted the same year as Tiger
Golf
Woods.
Hall of Fame.
Yeah, like the big one.
Not like the Oklahoma Golf Hall of Fame.
No, the big one.
You know, like
and she started the game of golf because she worked with horses outside of Lincoln Park, and one of her horses got lost on the golf course and tore up some greens. I mean, it's crazy, some of these stories that are out there that are not known or little known, and so this was just kind of a platform to tell those stories, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and like you said, like you can ball out and literally write as much as there is to write about these stories because you don't have to worry about it. Like,
we are the writer, we are the editor, and we do it how we want it. And that's one thing. And who knows where this goes in 5 years or 10 years? Maybe we have a team of people that are doing this, and I have to edit the stories or whatever. But I was very staunch about writing the things that we want to write about and doing it the way we want to do it. We're not going to have perfect grammar. I studied AP style in college, but it's not going to be perfectly, in line with the New York Times or USA Today or wherever you get your news. But hopefully they're interesting, and hopefully we bring a different angle to the stories that we write. So that's kind of our philosophy with it. And if you like it, we love that. If you don't, move on. Yeah,
like there's so many stories to tell, there's so much to talk about. And there's some epic golf courses here that, I've kind of, for this place, right?
Yeah.
Hillcrest, it's kind of out of the way.
Yeah.
But it's worth coming up here to play golf here because it's fantastic.
Yeah, taking Hillcrest, for example, it's a 1925, I believe, Perry Maxwell golf course. So that was when Perry Maxwell was still kind of in his banker / golf course. He went full-time golf course architect after his banking career, but this is early on in his career. There have been a few. This is 2022. We've celebrated a few centennial. Perry Maxwell's this year with Duncan Golf and Tennis Club was last year, I believe, and there were a few others, but this is a classic Perry Maxwell. You were out there, you've seen those greens. You get that classic potato chip style green, and it's gorgeous. There's elevation out here, and that's one thing that Maxwell was very staunch about, was he would not work on a golf course if it wasn't land properly used for building a golf course. So he was as good a scout of land as he was anything, and this is one of those cases.
So again, starts a couple of years ago. You're slow to get off the kind of blocks on purpose, just so you can kind of, because the last thing you want to do is say, hey, we're this new thing, and then you haven't written anything for 4 months.
Exactly.
I've made that mistake many times. This is Oklahoma Golf for anybody interested. But it's great because then, like you said, you have the time to tell the full story.
Yeah.
Like you said, the story, which I'll link the website in the description. You guys can go read some of the stories out there. Tell me about kind of like how you get hooked up with Casey from the Golfers Journal, and then like how you do the Boiling Springs event as well.
Yeah. So again, it's a golf is a family, whether you've met these people or not. You played with two guys today that I don't know that you've ever met them before. Once. And it was as pleasant around. I followed you for 7 holes or so, and it was as pleasant a time as I've had on a golf course in a long time. Perfectly, nice guys, perfectly accommodating, and that's how this game is. You can walk out and play with 3 other guys that you've never met before and be great friends with them by the end of the round. That was kind of the same way with getting hooked up with Casey. They were coming through. I think this was the first year they had the van, and the first summer they had the van, and he was coming through, and somebody made a call out. Whether it was Casey or somebody local, had a call out to play at Kicking Bird one day, and it was about as hot as a day as it is today, 100 degrees plus, and Casey came through with the van, and Spencer and I just showed up, and we had a couple of friends, and we played 9 holes with Casey that night, and ended up going over to some guy's house and having hot dogs and hanging out till 1 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday or something like that. And it was just, it was a great experience, and we kind of stayed in touch. And he contacted me, I don't know, maybe a year ago at this point, about any hidden gems in the Midwest that we had our eyes on. We've been out to Boiling Springs a handful of times. Jeff Wagner does there are not words to express how good of a job Jeff Wagner does at Boiling Springs. With what he has. It's with as few resources as he has and as inhospitable of a place Western Oklahoma can be, it is incredible to have a golf course of that magnitude and stature out there, and maintained as well as he does. I think he runs a two-man crew, which, nobody does that.
It's unheard of.
Yeah.
To have that level of golf.
You don't run Top Golf with a two-man crew. And so, we got Casey hooked on to Boiling Springs, and it's such a unique experience too. I mean, that's the one thing that's so cool about Oklahoma is there's such variety from, the Ouachita Mountains to the Wichita Mountains to the Panhandle to, the Little Sahara. I mean, there's just so much in Oklahoma, and that also manifests itself in golf courses in Oklahoma. And so Boiling Springs is really unique in that regard. We got them hooked up. They played an event at Prairie Dunes in Hutchinson, Kansas the week before, and they were really just kind of looking for something in between. They, when they take the van out, they're out. You can't just ship the van back to Southern California. Yeah. So they needed an event, and we got them hooked up with Jeff and made it work. So it was a really cool 2-day event. When we were talking, we rolled in on Friday and it was 95 degrees. And when we got up Saturday morning, it was 55 degrees. And that's, if anybody knows Western Oklahoma, that's what it is. So, and the wind was blowing about 40 the whole time out of different directions. So,
because you guys had them here for the PGA as well, right? With them?
Yeah, they stayed. Casey stayed with us.
He stayed with you?
And his team. Yeah, he stayed. We had this is a crazy story. So, they were doing some pre-PGA coverage. Casey had written some stories on it and stuff, and so they brought the van, and I live in a little neighborhood in Owasso, and so I had that van parked outside my house for 4 days, and it's it's a big matte black Sprinter van. I mean, you can't miss it, right? And it's got a T logo, golf tee on it, on the side of it, and so it's kind of it was brash sitting out in my driveway, but they came in for a few weeks. The three of them, Casey and Foster McCune, and then they had a photographer, Matt Hahn, out of Dallas, came up. And Matt, if you've not,
who's incredible.
Oh my gosh! If you've not seen his, in fact, we're about to post a story. It'll probably be live by the time this goes live on Boiling Springs, and we're going to use some photography that Matt took from that event, and he's unbelievable. And his summer, he went, I think he covered 2 majors. Yeah. And he's just getting his photography business up and running, and he's so busy. But I don't know. I just can't speak highly enough about Matt and his photography. But they came in, and the first night they were in town, and mind you, I haven't seen Casey in 2 years. Yeah. I've never met Foster. I've never met Matt. They're staying in my house. I have about a month-old baby at this point. And we're hanging out, whatever. I want to show them the best of what Tulsa has to offer. And 11 o'clock that night, we had a bit of an emergency. We had to take Palmer, my daughter, to the emergency room that night. And so they had already gone to bed, and I texted Casey and Foster, and I said, hey, you guys just watch the dog. We got to run to the emergency room real quick. And we were there till 3 or 4 in the morning, and it was wild. But they were, they're so cool, and we got to do some really cool things. I took them to Brahms for the first time. I love Brahms. We go to Brahms 3 times a week as a family. It's a tradition. But we did the Gathering Place. They did a Drillers game, so they got to do some really cool things in Tulsa and kind of see, some of the more interesting aspects of Tulsa. I know they went to Black Wall Street as well, and did that as well. So it was cool, and they had some really cool coverage of that.
Yeah, that's fun to show show people like that your home city, right?
I
and
love
show
it, man.
But also show them like they're not getting the tourist attraction. They're getting like, come and see it how I would show you.
I will say this: I gave them an option. They were here for 4 days. I gave them an option on Thursday night. They had the Drillers game, or I was announcing an Owasso game, and they chose the Drillers game. I was a little bummed out about that, but Owasso did win a state title this year,
right?
But no, they had a great time at the ballpark.
So fast forward me from there then into how you guys get a press pass for the PGA.
Yeah, so that was wild, and I'm still not convinced that it happened. I'm still a little shell-shocked that it happened. So Brian Carnes, who I don't know if you've had on the podcast yet, you need to get Brian on the podcast. Great guy, is an Oklahoma native. He's the champ director for the PGA this year at Southern Hills, and he did it last year as well for the senior PGA. And we did a story on Brian. He and I actually worked together in the OSU athletic department when we were in college. He was a few years older than me, and is a great guy and has done really well for himself at the PGA of America. And this was his first big champ to run, to be the tournament director of. And so it's a really special thing to get to do that in your home state. And if you know anything about those champ directors, they're moving every 2 or 3 years. They're moving their whole families to different, he was in Rochester for 3 years, and he was in Lexington for 3 years. And so it's a hectic life to do that. And so for him to be able to do that in Tulsa, in his home state, his wife is from Owasso, and for them to be back for that was really special. And we wanted to do a story on that. So we wrote a story on Brian, and I'm not convinced that helped or hurt our chances to get credentialed for the PGA, but they did give us 2 credentials for the PGA, and man, what an experience that was. It was as good of a week as it was for people watching golf and for Southern Hills and the membership. I think we had the best week of everybody. It was incredible. Right,
because you are you're in your home city, home state, on a golf course that is obviously the best in well, I say obviously, it's definitely 1 and 2, but for the best in the state. But at the same time, you got the world's best coming here, and you would have been there anyway, even if you didn't have a press pass,
sure.
right? But the fact that you have that pass, you're inside the ropes. Tell me when you get that call. Where are you?
Well, it was
because it's like Christmas Day.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. It's all online. You have to apply online and all of that stuff, and I've applied for a million credentials in my life, with announcing and things like that. But there's always that nervous anticipation. You submit your application, and that you're not a full-time publication, and you're not, your circulation's not as big, but you're local and you're doing local stories, so maybe they'll cut you some slack, And so there was that nervous anticipation, and a week goes by and 2 weeks go by, and it's a month out, and it's like, well, I haven't bought tickets, so maybe I should start looking for tickets. And then you get that confirmation email and it says, hey, you're approved for 2 press passes, which is crazy to me that we got 2, but we're really blessed that happened. And immediately I called Spencer up. I was like, hey, did you get this email? Just making sure that we got the email, because we had to apply individually. I couldn't just apply for for Red Dirt Golf, and so making sure that he got it too, and I wasn't the only one. So that was a surreal moment. And so from there, it was just all green lights. I mean, it was gas the whole way, trying to figure out what sort of content we're going to do. And we know, again, we were talking, off camera. We're not writing about the coverage of the championship. I'm not writing about how, Mito Pereira is in the lead going into Sunday morning. That 95% of the other riders in that press room are doing that. We wanted to find different angles. And so, brainstorming what sort of content we're going to do. And, I know you're a hardcore photographer. I'm not. Most of this stuff that we do on our Twitter account is through this thing right here. It's this iPhone. And so, trying to figure out, how are we going to get around that? And just trying to, decide what sort of coverage our audience wants to see, and how are we going to put the red dirt spin on it. And so it was a busy month, and that was also when the Golfers Journal guys were in town too. So, it was a busy month trying to do that with a 1-month-old, trying to figure out how I'm going to do 6 days out at Southern Hills with at that time, a 2-month-old and no sleep, and how I'm going to convince my wife to let me do this, And so it was a crazy experience, but it actually happened. And I still, listening to your episode with Reagan Kingsley the other day, it just brought back so many memories, and we're only, a month and a half removed, 2 months removed from it. And it's like, I made so many memories that week. Like, it's going to be hard. I need to write them all down because there's too many to remember. I know that I'm going to forget some, and I don't want to forget anything.
You need to voice note them first, don't you?
Absolutely.
Just to have them, and that's just because it's fresh, and just go day by day, because just walking in the gates for the first day.
Oh my gosh.
And you're just you're on eggshells, right?
Yeah.
It's it's kind of like that imposter syndrome. You're like, I don't think I belong here, but I'm going to try not to piss anybody off because I want this to happen again. And you're just that's.
And it was so cool too. Nick Sidorkis is the GM at Southern Hills, and Kerry Cosby's the head golf professional. And Kerry's been so good to us. Basically just kind of opened their doors and allowed us to come in and do what we want content wise. And I've worked with him for 2 or 3 years. He started during COVID. He started what they're calling the Oklahoma Junior Masters. It's a junior amateur tournament out there, and some of the state's best prep golfers. The first year Austin Eckroat and Quade Cummins played in it. Yeah. And this year, there's anybody that is a prep golfer in the state of Oklahoma, is kind of the premier tournament, but they've allowed me to be the first tee announcer for all 3 years of it, which is just an incredible experience. And this year, it's usually late summer at Southern Hills. This year, Kerry convinced the PGA to allow them to bump it up to the week before the championship. And so you've got these, anywhere from 14 to 18-year-old Oklahoma kids out there teeing off in front of those grandstands and stuff. And they really did it big, and it was special. But even, being there with no infrastructure on the grounds, and then being there with all of the infrastructure on the grounds, it's crazy how much they've done. I know Reagan spoke to that. I think he said, 60,000 zip ties on fences or something like that. It's crazy stuff.
Yeah, it was millions of fence line or millions of feet of fence line. Something the stats were nuts. And even we did it a month after the event, and it was still they were still tearing stuff down. And I'd never been there before. Yeah. So driving in there, obviously you get shuttled in when you show up to the event, but then driving up to the gate, what a drive that is. Right?
Absolutely.
And everyone's on the range having a great time.
I've always said, Augusta has Magnolia Lane. Southern Hills has that drive. They need to name that drive.
They do need to name that drive.
I've always thought that, again, the Masters has its own music. Yeah. The players used to have their own music. They don't use it anymore, but it used to be, I don't know if you remember this, it used to be the theme from The Man from Snowy River.
Okay.
I don't remember the name of the song, but it was one of the songs in The Man from Snowy River. It was a great film. And I've always...
Do you have suggestions for this song?
No, I don't know. I don't know, maybe some Jason Boland or something like that. I don't know. We need to put our Oklahoma flair on it, but no, honestly, it's one of the prettiest drives in all of golf anywhere, especially here in Oklahoma. it's really to drive past that guard gate, and it's half mile, 3/4 of a mile up to the clubhouse. Drive. And you see most of the golf course. On both sides. You get to see the Corin Crenshaw 9, and then obviously you see Perry Maxwell's championship course, and it's you just get chills when you're driving up that drive. So it's definitely a special, and to be on the media shuttle bus driving through those gates with, Alan Shipnuck sitting behind me and Sean Martin's in front of me. And, I don't get, when you're around athletes a lot, you don't get,
starstruck.
Yeah, you don't get starstruck. You don't get shell shocked by a lot of guys. The first time that ever happened to me is when I got to announce Clayton Kershaw at Bricktown Ballpark during his rehab. That was really cool. And then the second time was seeing our name, Red Dirt Golf Collective, on a booth in the media center, and I'm next to Brendan Quinn of The Athletic, who I've followed for years.
Right.
And, just seeing some of those, the Barstool guys were there for a couple of days, and we got to see them, and I don't know, man, it was just wild to see, these are guys who I grew up reading,
right.
And seeing their content. And it's cool to see. It was cool to be in the same place with the same status, I guess, as them, and it felt really good. And, there was a bit of an imposter syndrome there,
sure.
Just because, we were probably the only ones there who weren't making money to be there and write it. This is a hobby for us. This is not this is our passion project.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was very encouraging to see, Sean Martin came up and said, "Hey man, I've read your stuff. I love what you're writing." How cool is that? I mean, that was such a confidence boost. He writes for the PGA Tour every single stinking week, and to have somebody like that just give us that confidence boost was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, for anyone listening, that's like some, CEO saying you're doing a great job, right? Or like some tiger coming up to you on the range when you're hitting golf ball saying, "Hey bud, you're doing great.
Nice
keep working." Yeah. Like it's so cool to have that and to be in that scene, for the first time, right? To be in that and the PGA Championship, the scale of it, and have the event, the way it turned out, the playoff and all. I mean, just all of it. Like it couldn't have gone any better, but then you got a front row seat to it. Yeah,
it was cool. I did a story on Sunday. We have a whole PGA Championship section on our website. You can go back and read any of these stories, but kind of the angle I wanted to take on Sunday, I got up there. I think the media buses started, and this was ridiculous. You'll enjoy this. The media center hotel was the Renaissance at 71st and 169 across town. So you had to plan an extra hour ahead with traffic and everything to grab the bus there to go. I'm not complaining because they literally rolled me up to the clubhouse. I didn't have to walk a step. Yeah. But I on Sunday morning, I grabbed the earliest media shuttle I could and got there before dark. Or before sunlight, and walked the back nine by myself inside the ropes. Nobody was there to stop me, and it was I don't know. I tried to write about the experience that was, because you think about major championship golf and the tens of thousands of people that are there every day, and the attention that it draws, and I just wanted to experience the solitude of being and try to put myself in maybe a contender's position, standing on the 11th tee box, that par 3 in the corner of the property, and how would I hit this shot if I was 2 back, with 7 holes to play or something like that, and that was a really special, walk for me to get to do it. And I didn't tell anybody I was going to do it. I just went out there and did it. And that was one of my favorite pieces I've ever written personally. That one meant a lot to me to be able to get to do that. So, and it kind of summed up our whole experience, of getting to do this in our home state, at a course we love, with people around us that we love. It was really cool.
I've done it kind of that similar experience once, been out on a golf course and watched the sunrise. Yeah. And you're the only one out there, and you're walking down the middle of, and I've got chills talking about it. And like you're walking down the middle of a fairway, and I FaceTimed my dad actually while I was doing it, and you're walking down the middle of the fairway, and I remember walking down this 9th fairway, and I turn around and I'm just seeing my footprints because you're the only one out there, and it's like 5:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock, and you're just like, this is golf, right? Like this is like, when you say, write a letter to golf, right? Like it is that for me,
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's so peaceful and so quiet, and I mean, it's paradise. But also, I FaceTime my dad. I'm like, "Dad, look at this," and he has no idea what it's like.
Sure.
Like he just does, and because I totally understood it and it made it more special for me because like he has no idea how cool this feels.
And isn't that the beauty of it too?
Yeah.
I mean, you can find that beauty in the solitude of it, playing around by yourself early in the morning or late at night or whenever it is. But also you have that yearning to share that experience with somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Even if you know that they're not going to fully appreciate it the way you are appreciating it in that moment. That's what's so cool about. Again, I'm not good at this game.
Right.
You know, I have a bag full of scrum clubs that I've picked up throughout the years, but I play every chance I get because I love it, and I love to meet the people, and I love to experience the golf courses and the people behind the golf courses. And I don't know, man, it's just it's a drug, and it keeps you coming back.
Yeah, well, and that's the beauty of it is you know you can relate through your writing. You can relate to literally everybody. Mm-hmm. You know. Like I said, a guy like you who like hasn't gone and spent, you know, $2,000 on a brand new set of clubs, and you know, or someone who is, you know, an elite amateur or played college golf or just getting started, or the dad that had, you know, they only played golf with their grandpa, whatever it is. Like it's such a cool sport, and I think just getting away from just like the noise and being out on a golf course with you and your buddies, or just you on your own, and just, you know, I mean, nobody walks golf courses anymore, but like go and walk the golf course, right? Like even if you take a push cart, whatever it is, just be out there. I mean, it's why I fell in love with the game. Like I have everything I have in life, I can tie it back to golf. Yeah. Every person I've met, I mean, it always comes back to being on a golf course somewhere. I wouldn't be here without it. Yeah.
My great grandfather was a rancher in Velma, Oklahoma, mm-hmm. and he picked up the game late in his life. Played at Wild Horse Golf Club in Velma, Oklahoma. You know, and you know, it's just whether it's heritage or lineage or the friendships you make or the, you know, the beauty you find in the golf course. I mean, it's everywhere, and you know, I don't know how you can play this game and not find beauty in it.
Yeah.
It's going to be frustrating. It's going to be, you know, defeating and deflating sometimes. But at the end of the day, you know, you sit here and you look across Hillcrest Country Club and you see, you know, the creation that Perry Maxwell built 100 years ago, 97 years ago. Yeah. How can you not be romantic about that? You know, it's just, I've got goosebumps just thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, because like you look at, I mean, for people who have never been out here, there's a lot of trees at Hillcrest, and a lot of them are very old. So you're walking between these trees. When 100 years ago, these people, the people they dream, you know, people we could tell stories about have walked the same walks.
Yeah,
and that's only golf has. Well, I say golf. Like golf is one of the very few sports that has that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you know, geek out here for a moment, but in the 1930s, when A.W. Tillinghast came back to Oklahoma, he did a consulting tour during the Great Depression to help golf courses be more sustainable. And he came back through Oklahoma and he touched Lincoln Park and Twin Hills, Oklahoma City Golf and Country Club, and then he came to Tulsa and did Indian Hills and the Oaks and Tulsa Country Club, and then came to Bartlesville and spent a day at Hillcrest. And so I got to deliver a letter to John Ron over here, the head pro here at Hillcrest. I got to deliver him Tillinghast's letter from 1934, and he had never seen that before.
So
and like, how cool is that? You know, that you know, one of the world's greatest golf course architects in history has been here on this property, has consulted, you know, with their people and made it more sustainable, and now here we are 80 years later, 100 years later, enjoying the same property. It's just it's so special.
Yeah, it's so good. All right, finishing up, what's the kind of, you know, 10,000 foot view of what you want Red Dirt Golf Collective to become one day, and then, you know, I mean, where are we going from here? Because you do have a young child, you have got to make money, and you do work a full-time job. But if all that was taken care of, what would you do? Why would you do it?
Man, this whole experience has been amazing, and I just hope that we're able to continue to do what we're doing. I don't care if it grows, if it doesn't grow. We've got great ideas and bright ideas that hopefully, you know, if we could, you know, one of our ideas, I want to do a Maxwell tour, you know, and have events at Perry Maxwell's, maybe not Southern Hills, but, Buffalo Rock in Cushing, Duncan Golf and Tennis Club. I mean, there's so many Perry Maxwell courses in the state of Oklahoma that don't get the exposure that maybe they deserve. Hillcrest right here. That's right, John Ron. And so, I'd love to do an event tour of that nature. I'd love to do some videos. I mean, people can read all about it, but until you see the golf courses and experience them, at least through video, if not walking the golf courses, I mean, that's the best way. And that's why things like Random Golf Club have gone so big, or the Strap series that No Laying Up does, or, there's so many of these fledgling media outlets have gotten so popular because of high quality video and photography. And that's one thing I think we can grow, over the next few years. Just continuing to tell these stories and hopefully, shining a light on and uncovering a lot of things that people can be proud of in the state of Oklahoma. I mean, going back to Waco Turner, it seems like nobody realizes that the first black man that won on the PGA Tour won in Bernieville, Oklahoma in the 1960s. 10 years before anything else happened. I mean, how cool is that? Nobody knows that. And it was because of an oilman from Ardmore, Oklahoma built a golf course and coaxed the PGA Tour to have an event out there, So there's some really cool experiences and stuff that hopefully we can shine a light on. So.
Yeah, awesome. Well, mate, I really appreciate it. It's been so good to tell stories. Shout out to John for letting us sit in the in Hillcrest dining room with this amazing view. For people listening, then, what's the website? What's the socials? Where can they go and read your? I mean, let's start with the 4,000 words you wrote about Hillcrest.
RedDirtGolf.com. It's easy enough. We try to keep it simple. We've got like 4 tabs on the website, and some of it's highly visual, some of it's only stories. So you can kind of pick your poison there. Awesome. RedDirtGolf.com. You can follow us on Twitter. I think our handle is RDGC_OK because Red Dirt Golf Collective was too long. So, but just search Red Dirt Golf and you should be able to find it. Same thing on Instagram. And hopefully, see us out and about. We've got our little bison is our logo. And so if you see it, thank you very much.
Do we have merch coming?
Hopefully. Yeah. Hopefully I know. That's it's on the docket, so we've got a little bit out there, but the crazy story about the logo. Spencer and I were talking when we wanted to start this, and we were, like, what are we going to do? Like, we really like, the minimalist style that's out there and whatever. Yeah. And I was just jotting stuff down and just was kind of drawing a stick figure buffalo and on a piece of notebook paper that is a 1 of 1, no revisions at all. That's what we drew. Yeah. And so I captured it, like a Adobe captured or whatever, and turned it into a PNG, and that's what we've used ever since. So that's gone really well for us. So
it's epic.
Thanks, man.
Awesome. Well, for everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed that little dive into Oklahoma golf. I'll put the link to Red Dirt Golf Collective website and social media in the description, and we will catch you next episode. Cheers. This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, telling Oklahoma stories through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com and definitely on Instagram at oklahomahof.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.